In my previous life, when I became successful, I revealed that I had been bullied in high school. But the girl Jane who bullied me couldn't bear the outcry of public opinion and chose to commit suicide. But not long after she committed suicide, my fiancé Mark jumped off the wedding hotel building in front of the media. Before he died, he left only one sentence. So many years have passed, and I have been with you to atone for her sins, why are you still unwilling to let her go? So after being reborn, when Mark rejected Jane's confession and was retaliated by Jane, I did not choose to call the police to stop it. In this life, I don't want to be bullied again because of someone who doesn't deserve it. Jane committed suicide. The incident started because of an interview. This was my first interview after winning the Best Actress award. In front of the screen, I talked about the dark times when I was bullied in high school. Once the interview was exposed, countless netizens came to watch. Fans dug deep to find out who was behind the school bullying. So, with the information revealed by a group of insiders, 11 years later, the school bullying that had long been buried under time was finally exposed to everyone. I know this girl, she was Jane, the school belle in our class. I had a friend who was blocked in the school toilet by Jane because of his good looks and was almost disfigured by her. She relied on her family's wealth to bully her classmates at school. Later, her father used money to settle the matter for her. I remember this incident of school bullying. It was quite a big deal and someone almost died. Jane was supposed to be expelled from school and sent to jail, but I don't know why she was released. It seems she even had to repeat a year and retake the college entrance exam. Those who bully in school should die. Such people don't deserve to live. I dare not imagine how much effort the actress Young had to use to dare to expose her past scars to outsiders. That's it. Bully dog, die. Jane, die. The public opinion on the internet almost exposed Jane completely, and countless condemnations and insults poured in. Almost everyone who was involved in this incident was implicated. Jane's family business went bankrupt, and her husband, who had just been married for a short time, divorced her because of this. By the time I realized that the situation was out of control, it was already too late. Jane suffered a mental breakdown. She left a simple "I'm sorry" on the social media platform and then jumped off the roof of her house. The night Jane's death was revealed, I was preparing for my wedding the next day with a group of relatives and friends. That's right, I'm getting married. I chose to marry my high school sweetheart at the peak of my career. The moment I heard the news of Jane's suicide from my friends, I didn't know how to feel. At that moment, I felt like I had done something wrong. Should I not have exposed my past shadows under the spotlight during the interview? But I can't swallow this. The bullying that year almost cost me my life. I can no longer remember how many nights I woke up from nightmares, nor can I remember how long it took me to get out of that shadow. But while I was sitting there in agony, struggling with the hardships I had gone through, what was Jane, the culprit, doing? She has long forgotten everything, traveling all over the world with friends, holding the admission letter from a prestigious foreign university, and sharing inspirational articles on WeChat moments. This culprit who almost ruined my life did not pay any price and is still living recklessly. How can I swallow this? If Mark hadn't been with me, I would probably have committed suicide in the school's artificial lake in the winter of my sophomore year due to severe depression. I did want Jane to pay, but I never wanted her to die. I didn't know if I had done anything wrong, so I took out my phone and subconsciously wanted to send a message to Mark. Mark, am I doing this wrong? I waited anxiously for Mark's reply, but he didn't reply yet. My friend came up to me and patted me on the shoulder, telling me not to think too much. It's not your fault. It's karma. It's not your fault. Don't think too much about it. Besides, we had agreed that it was the last day of singles night and everyone should not disturb each other. Relax and enjoy your last night alone. As my friend spoke, he snatched my phone and threw it on the sofa beside me. She pulled me aside and started chatting with several bridesmaids in the circle. I was in a bad mood that night, looking at myself being thrown on the sofa. The phone is still on the chat screen with Mark. I always feel like there is always a sense of uneasiness in my heart. It turns out that my feeling was right. Mark committed suicide. He jumped from the top floor of the building where Jane committed suicide. When I arrived at the scene in my wedding dress with my eyes wide open, all I saw was blood all over the floor and the cell phone that the police gave me and that Mark had left on the rooftop. In my phone, there was a message that Mark hadn't had time to send to me. So many years have passed, and I have been with you to atone for her sins, why are you still unwilling to let her go? I didn't have time to understand what this sentence meant because I fainted. When I woke up from the hospital, it was already noon 3 days later. I, the newly crowned film queen, was also scolded by netizens and became a hot topic because of the news that the groom committed suicide on the wedding day. That's right, the scolding became a hot topic. The reason was that a careful netizen discovered Mark's WB account. An account called Mark Loves Jane. This account was applied for 10 years ago and has been updated since 10 years ago. It records his unforgettable secret love for a girl. But this girl is not me. 10 years, a full 3,650 days and nights. 3,500 Facebook posts, and at the end of each one there was a sentence, "To Jane, the love of my life." The fiancé of the newly crowned actress is actually obsessed with the culprit who bullied her. This is undoubtedly explosive news. As the incident unfolded, countless speculations emerged. One of the speculations has attracted the attention of netizens. Am I the only one who thinks that Nancy deliberately exposed the bullying incident to the media? Did she find out that her fiancé liked Jane a long time ago, so she deliberately took revenge? Nancy's fiancé is her agent, right? According to what she said before, she and her fiancé have been together since high school, but at that time, her fiancé had already fallen in love with Jane. I think there is something hidden here. Who knows who bullied whom back then? Let me tell you. Jane and Nancy were classmates before. They both liked Mark in high school. From that time on, the relationship between the two was already tense. Think about it carefully. Netizens began to speculate more and more maliciously towards me, and with Mark WB's exposure, the bullying incident suddenly began to reverse. Those who had participated in the bullying incident and were accused of cyber violence by netizens are now using public opinion to spread rumors about me. They said that I interfered in their relationship during high school, and that the so-called bullying incident was just a rumor I made up for the sake of hype and personal image. The accusations and scolding almost broke me down. But at this moment, I don't have the strength or energy to clarify. Why did it turn out like this? I looked at the updates from Mark's secondary account that were dug out by netizens, and I really wanted to find some clues from those updates to prove that he was not the owner of this account. But it was all in vain. After knowing each other for 11 years, I know Mark's tone of voice too well, including every conversation he had with Jane in high school that he posted on Facebook, which proves his identity. How ridiculous. He said that he felt Jane was different from all the girls around him. He said she was bold but delicate, outspoken but sensitive. Every word he said was filled with his passionate love for Jane. Even Jane remembered every look, every expression, and every smile she gave him very clearly. He said that the thing he regretted most in his life was rejecting Jane's confession. But she never mentioned who was the one who got so angry that she blocked him in the alley after he refused to confess his love, and who couldn't stand Jane's behavior and kindly called the police for him. Who was it that offended Jane for him and bore Jane's anger for 2 whole years? So, he accompanied Jane for 11 years just to atone for her sins. It turns out that all my pain, all my emotions, and all my sacrifices over the years have been a complete joke. The day before Mark committed suicide, he posted his last WB message on his secondary account. "I avenged you with my life. If I had the chance to do it again, I would definitely come to you without hesitation. Crazy man and crazy woman. They died a worthy death. If it happens again, I don't want to be the audience of your one-man show. Sadist and masochist, you two better lock them up." I never thought that when I opened my eyes again, I would be back in the high school classroom. When I saw this familiar scene, my brain almost went blank for a moment, until I saw the art exam application form under my arm. Then I finally came to my senses, my eyes full of surprise. I was reborn. Unfortunately, this joy did not last long and was interrupted by the noise on the podium. "Mark, Jane, am attracted to you. How about it? Would you consider being my boyfriend?" Jane's voice was still the same as in her previous life, full of confidence and arrogance. There was a determined smile on that beautiful and bright little face. Mark in front of her was blocked by her and his men. There was almost no expression on his young but always handsome face at the moment, as if everything around him had nothing to do with him. But I was the only one who could see clearly that his ears were almost red enough to bleed. Watching this scene, my eyes gradually turned cold. I think he should be very happy at this moment. After all, his WB in his previous life clearly recorded that he fell in love with Jane on this day. "Since you like each other, why don't you be together?" A hint of sarcasm escaped from the corner of my mouth. Was it because I was shy? Or was it because I was timid? If that's the case, then I don't mind giving him a hand. At this moment, everyone's eyes were focused on the two of them, watching the excitement. No one noticed that I stood up from my seat, shaking my book, and shouted to the two people on the podium. "Mark, what are you standing there for? Jane has confessed her love to you. You are so proud of her. Do you really want to reject our campus beauty? Promise her. Promise her. Together. Together. My sudden excitement immediately attracted everyone's attention. Seeing someone leading the atmosphere, all the students in the classroom became restless. The school beauty and the top student are a perfect match. That's it. A talented man and a beautiful woman, a match made in heaven. Together. Together. Seeing me taking the lead and assisting, Jane looked at me in surprise, as if she had never thought that I, who had never had any contact with her, would help her assist. But as the noise grew louder, Jane stopped pursuing the matter and instead raised her chin triumphantly towards Mark. I looked at the classroom with satisfaction as the booing grew louder and louder. I don't know whether he will be with Jane even though I have created so much momentum for him in this life. In a trance, I seemed to feel Mark's gaze on the stage linger on me for a moment. There seemed to be a moment of incomprehensible shock and panic in his indifferent eyes. Or maybe I just saw it wrong. Seeing that Mark didn't answer for a long time, Jane's smug look gradually disappeared. She saw a threat gradually creeping into Mark's eyes. Just as she was about to say something, Mark spoke up. "Sorry, I refuse to be with you. You are beautiful, but I don't like you." These two sentences were almost exactly the same as in my previous life, but for some reason I didn't feel any regret from them. Instead, I felt a sense of alienation, and wanted to cut off all ties with her immediately. Jane's face changed instantly. Seeing Mark's determination, a haze immediately appeared in Jane's eyes, and she threatened him. "Are you sure you want to reject my confession in front of so many people? Mark, I'll give you one more chance, would you please think about it carefully? No, I am very sure that I don't want to fall in love too early as it will affect my studies." After Mark said this, he pushed away the classmates who surrounded them and returned to his seat. "Okay. Mark. No one has ever said no to me. You have guts." Jane almost shouted these words to Mark's back with gritted teeth, then walked out of the classroom with a gloomy face. Everything developed just like in the previous life. What shocked me was that even though I was cheering for Mark like this in this life, he still rejected Jane. Although I was extremely happy in my heart, I still chose to refuse. What is this? Self-abuse? I sneered in my heart, and then I saw Mark walking down from the podium and preparing to return to his seat. I subconsciously lowered my head to avoid making eye contact with him. After all, I didn't want to have any contact with him again in this life, nor did I want to endure more than a year of school bullying because of him. But as the old saying goes, sometimes what you fear will come true. Mark actually stopped in front of my desk. Why do this? At this moment, Mark stood in front of my desk and spoke. But for some reason, I always feel that there is a bit of grievance and anger in this question. I was stunned for a moment, and subconsciously looked up to meet his eyes. I felt that something was wrong with Mark at this moment. But when I saw the still calm expression in his eyes, I completely forgot about the previous thought. What? I raised my eyebrows at him and then suddenly realized. Oh, you mean the booing just now? I don't mean anything else, I just think you two are a perfect match. No way, we are all classmates, we are just making a fuss, you won't get angry so easily. I can only say that having been in the entertainment industry for many years in my previous life, I know how to be sarcastic. I saw Mark pursing his lips, as if he was disdainful of arguing with me, and returned to his seat without saying a word. The bell for class happened to ring at this moment. During the whole class, I seemed to be able to sense a vague gaze behind me, as if it wanted to burn through my back. Jane never returned to the classroom. I naturally know what is waiting for Mark next, and now I am very happy to see it. It took me a whole morning to adapt to the first-year high school curriculum. After school, I carefully put the application form for art exam into a folder and stuffed it into my school bag. In my previous life, I worked diligently in the entertainment industry for 8 years, and finally had the honor of sitting on the throne of Best Actress. But even so, I still have a worry in my heart. I am not a professional. In my previous life, Jane deliberately tore up my application form the day before I submitted it, making it impossible for me to transfer to the art exam class. After that, the day before I finally found a channel and was about to take the art exam, I was beaten half to death and locked up on the rooftop of the school. In my previous life, I took many detours because I had no connections and systematic professional practice. So, after realizing that I was reborn, the first thought that came to my mind was to seize this opportunity of rebirth. Get admitted to the film school that I dreamed of in my previous life. As for Mark and Jane in this life, I don't care. Didn't Mark fall in love with Jane at first sight? Didn't he regret not being with her? Since he was eager to seek abuse, I would not snatch away his chance to get close to Jane like I did in my previous life. Let him enjoy Jane's love for him. Thinking this, I put on my backpack and walked out of the school. When I passed the alley next to the school, I heard familiar insults and painful groans coming from inside, and I couldn't help but stop. I was carrying my school bag and looking sideways. What I saw was Jane and her gang of thugs trampling the disheveled Mark under their feet. No boy that I have a crush on has ever rejected my confession without any sense of courtesy. Mark, who do you think you are? You are just a poor student. It is your blessing that I like you. Not only did you not agree, you even dared to refuse in front of the whole class. This is clearly an attempt to rub my face. Jane had a cigarette in her mouth, looking like a gangster, which was totally inconsistent with her harmless face. She put one foot on Mark, as if she were stepping on a dog, and looked down at him. But I could see that when she looked at Mark, there was still a strong desire to conquer him. After all, for people like Jane, things that are easily available are worthless to them. Only things that never belong to them can keep her feeling excited. Sure enough, when it comes to the degree of perversion, these two people are absolutely on par with each other. They are a perfect match. In my previous life, because I couldn't stand Jane bullying Mark, I took out my cell phone and called the police without hesitation when I passed by this alley. He stepped forward again and stood in front of Mark. After helping him drive Jane away, I thoughtfully sent him to the hospital. Since I couldn't contact his mother, I took care of him in the hospital all night. I admit that I helped Mark at that time out of love for him, but apart from love, most of it was admiration. Mark's status as a poor student is no secret in our school. Mark's father died when he was very young, and his mother was the only one who managed everything in the family. Mark's high school entrance exam score was first in the city. He had obviously been admitted to a key high school in the city, but because of the tuition fees, he chose our high school instead. It was only because the principal promised him that, as long as he was willing to come here, not only would his tuition for 3 years of high school be waived, but the school would also give him an additional subsidy of 2,000 yuan per month. If you can get into a key university in 3 years, the school will also give you bonuses. Since entering school, Mark's grades have consistently ranked first in the school, and he has an excellent yet cold face. Mark quickly became a famous figure in the school. He comes from a poor family but is determined and resolute. He has excellent academic performance but is not arrogant or impatient. Which girl would not be attracted to such a boy during her youth? But it can only attract me in my previous life. But no matter in the last life or in this life, Mark doesn't deserve to be saved. I looked away, pretending I saw nothing, and turned away. But just as he took a step, he heard Mark's pitiful cry for help from behind him. "Help me." I didn't hear what Mark said clearly. I frowned and ran fast. It was as if I had never passed by there. I went home, closed the door, grabbed a handful of glutinous rice and sprinkled it all over myself. What bad luck. In order to avoid any further trouble. The next morning, I handed the application form for art examination to the teacher in charge of the school's art examination major. Teacher Chen, who was in charge of collecting the registration forms, looked at the registration form I handed in and said with satisfaction, "Nancy, I'm so glad you didn't choose to bury your talent. I believe that you will become the legend who creates new heights in art exam results." Teacher Chen had high expectations of me. In my previous life, it was she who discovered my talent for acting and suggested that I study systematically in this area. In my previous life, she couldn't bear to see my talent go to waste, so she helped me to smooth things over and made me eligible to take the art exam. It's a pity that I failed to live up to her expectations in the end. Teacher, I will definitely not let you down. I will definitely be admitted to the film academy. My voice was firm as I made my promise to Teacher Chen. In this life, I will never let her down again. When I returned to the classroom, morning self-study had already started. Mark was not at his seat, and for some reason the head teacher had not arrived at this time of day, and the class was noisy. I took out my textbook, asked the students to be quiet, and prepared to lead everyone in morning reading. But before I reached the podium, my cell phone vibrated. When I clicked on it, I saw it was a message from my homeroom teacher, asking me to go to the principal's office. I was a little puzzled as to what was going on, but when I arrived at the principal's office and saw the familiar scene before my eyes, everything went dark for a moment. In the office, Mark's mother put her hands on her hips and demanded that the principal give an explanation for the matter. Jane's parents did not come. The person who came was Jane's father's secretary, who was frowning and didn't know what to do with the fierce woman in front of him. Jane was standing aside. Her harmless face was devoid of the arrogance she had when she taught Mark a lesson yesterday. Her eyes were red, and she looked like a frightened deer. This was her usual disguise. As for Mark, his handsome face was now covered with scars and his left arm was bandaged. He looked as miserable as could be. But even so, I still found that the injuries Mark suffered in this life were more serious than in the previous life. It was worth all my loud noise yesterday. As if noticing my gaze, Mark immediately looked over here. It seems to be my illusion. I always feel that the moment he looked at me, his eyes seemed to light up, with a hint of expectation. The feeling of something wrong in my heart came to my mind again, but now is not the time to think about it. Teacher, you called me. When the head teacher saw me coming, he seemed to have seen a savior. My right eyelid couldn't help but twitch, and an ominous premonition lingered in my heart. Sure enough, the next second, I saw the head teacher pulling me and asking a question that made my eyes go dark. Nancy, Mark said he saw you passing by the alley where he was beaten last night. Did you see who beat up Mark last night? Is this the Jane that Mark pointed out? I was a little dazed, but more of it was incredible. Because everything happening before my eyes is almost exactly the same as what happened in my previous life. In my previous life, I called the police for Mark and prevented Jane and others from continuing to commit violence against Mark. The next day, Mark's mother went to the school with Mark and the medical report from the hospital, determined to make Jane, who had beaten Mark, pay the price. For this purpose, they also found me, a kind witness, hoping that I could point out on the spot who beat Mark last night. In my previous life, I was stupid. Even after knowing that I had offended Jane, I still pointed out several people led by Jane on the spot for Mark and for the so-called justice. But who would have known that Mark's mother would choose to reconcile with Jane for $100,000 in the end? Jane also turned her anger towards me, taking out all the anger that was originally directed at Mark on me. I thought that all this would not happen again today. After all, I could guarantee that under the dim lighting last night, Mark was beaten so hard that he was unconscious and would definitely not be able to recognize that it was me standing at the entrance of the alley. But what is going on now? I frowned slightly, feeling that something was wrong, but the current situation didn't allow me to think too much. Mark's mother was eager to protect her son, so she stepped forward and grabbed my hand, urging me. Girl, I can tell at first glance that you are a good student, unlike this little bitch who is blaming others for her own mistakes. Tell your auntie, did you see that little bitch beating my son in the alley? I was being pulled so hard by his mother that it hurt, and looking at the anxious-looking woman in front of me, I felt disgusted. In my previous life, I didn't like Mark's mother. She was very ambitious. Even after I became a little famous in the entertainment industry, she still felt that I was not worthy of her son. Later, after Mark committed suicide, she unreasonably thought that I had killed his son. I still remember that in my previous life, she accepted a large sum of money from my neighbor and fabricated a story in front of the camera that I forced Mark to get married and killed Jane. It was so shameless. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but turn cold. Under her expectant gaze, I shook off her hand and said to her slowly, Auntie, I didn't see it. I kept a calm expression and made up a lie. I pass by that alley every day after school, and I did hear some noise in that alley last night. But I didn't go in, so I have no idea what happened in that alley. My expression was very calm. My good psychological quality and superb acting skills acquired over the years were enough to make it impossible for people to find any flaws in my lies. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Mark, who was sitting on the bench with bruises all over his body. I saw his eyes wide open, as if he had never expected me to give this answer. From the moment I walked in, Mark's eyes were always on me. It was not until I said that his eyes gradually changed from shock to brokenness, as if something was slowly collapsing. I suddenly realized something, but before I could be shocked, Mark's mother pointed at me and shouted excitedly. Impossible. You must have been bribed by this little bitch. My son clearly saw you passing by that alley last night, how could you not have seen it? The head teacher looked at me and frowned. Nancy, are you sure you didn't see it? This is a very serious matter. Do you want to think about it again? Did you see it but didn't remember it? That's right, Nancy, many teachers in the school have mentioned your name to me. They all believe in your character and know that you are not a student who would lie. So, tell us truthfully what you heard and saw last night, and there will be a teacher standing behind you to uphold justice. The principal and the teacher sang the same tune, and actually had a definite answer to this matter in their hearts. But words are not enough, and the cameras in the alley have been in disrepair for a long time, so I just want someone to come forward as a witness. What a pity, I don't want to. I retracted my peripheral vision and said slowly. Teacher, I promise I didn't lie, I really didn't see anything last night. I did hear some noises in the alley, but it was already very late at that time. It was already unsafe for a girl like me to walk at night, so how could I possibly run into the alley alone to check these things? I also want to help Mark, but I can't just talk nonsense with my eyes open and frame Jane. Besides, Jane is a girl. How would she deal with herself at school if she was wrongly accused? I suppressed my disgust and kept myself out of the matter. I didn't originally want to speak for Jane, but when I thought about how this would disgust Mark's mother, I felt much better. I insisted that I didn't see anything last night. The head teacher and the principal asked me many times, trying to find an expression on my face that might indicate I was lying, but they couldn't find any flaws and had to let me go back. Until I walked out of the principal's office, Mark kept looking at me without blinking with an extremely hurt expression. The matter eventually came to nothing. It is said that because there was no witness, Jane's father's assistant simply claimed that all the injuries on Mark's body were inflicted by himself and tried to put the blame on Jane. In order to shut the school up, Jane's family said that they could pay to replace all the surveillance cameras in and around the school to ensure that such incidents of students being beaten and the murderer not being found would never happen again. Jane's father was very sincere, and after all the operations, the school could no longer say anything. After Mark's mother made a fuss several times, she saw that there was no result and could only swallow her anger. After all, Mark is, to put it bluntly, a poor student sponsored by the school. Who knows if she continues to make trouble like this, it will have any impact on Mark. The news that the academic genius was beaten spread throughout the school. Mark has been on leave at home for a few days, and I feel quite good without seeing him. The only time I felt upset was when I received a friend request from Mark one day. But I was just stunned for a moment, then I immediately clicked reject and block. Because I know that Mark has also been reborn. I was pretty sure that Mark had no chance of seeing me that night, so the teacher asking me to testify in the principal's office that day shouldn't have happened. But it still happened. So, when Mark blocked my way at the gate of my community, I was not surprised at all. Nancy. The wounds on Mark's face have not fully healed yet, but those wounds can't hide Mark's handsomeness at all. Instead, they make him look broken and pitiful. Nancy. His eyes were slightly red and his cold eyes were covered with some moisture. He said to me in a hoarse voice, "Why? You were born again, too, right?" Nancy. Seeing him like this, I couldn't help but clench my fists. I have to admit that when it comes to acting skills, Mark may be better than me. What is he doing? He clearly loved Jane so much that he was willing to commit suicide for her. God gave him a second chance to live his life again and pursue love again. Why did he have to come in front of me and perform this boring one-man show? Mark took a step towards me, and I subconsciously frowned slightly and took a step back. Excuse me, Mark, are we familiar with each other? I shouldn't be familiar with him. Mark in my previous life was aloof, silent and calm. We sat in the front and back seats for more than a year and never said a word to each other. If I hadn't stood up for him that time, perhaps we wouldn't have had any contact during our 3 years of high school. I made a wrong choice in my previous life, and in this life, it's time to get everything back on track. Nancy. Mark opened his mouth, his wet eyes turned even redder, and he reached out his hand to me tremblingly, trying to grab my sleeve, but I dodged it without leaving a trace. Mark, if you have nothing else, I will leave first. Also, please don't call me Nancy, Mark, you're crossing the line. After he finished speaking, Mark stood there in a daze. It was summer, but his face was as white as a sheet of paper. I turned around without mercy, but I heard his breathing quicken, and suddenly he raised his voice towards me. Why don't you save me? Nancy, don't you want me anymore? The only answer he got was my receding back. Time flies, and in the blink of an eye, the first year of high school is coming to an end. After that incident, Jane seemed to have completely broken off with Mark. The bullying that was instigated by Jane in the previous life was successfully committed by Mark in this life. All the surveillance cameras in the school have been replaced with new ones, and the entire school including the surrounding areas are fully covered by surveillance cameras. Without the blind spots in surveillance, Jane and others have restrained themselves a lot recently. They can no longer do evil things like they did before, so naturally all their anger is directed at Mark. I have seen more than once that during the break, Jane and her followers dragged Mark into the girls' room. Throw wet toilet paper at Mark, pour garbage covered with excrement on Mark's head, and press the mop used to mop the toilet on his face. In my previous life, I suffered similar bullying for 2 years. All this should have nothing to do with me. Whenever I went to the bathroom and saw Mark being bullied, I would ignore the expectant yet pitiful look in his eyes when he looked at me. I don't understand what he is expecting. Is he expecting me to stand up and block him like I did in my previous life? Shouldn't he be happy? After all, I gave him the opportunity to have close contact with the only person I loved in my heart. He clearly loves Jane to death, but for some reason he rejected his confession. Could it be that he likes the feeling of being loved but not being able to get it? Mark is such a jerk. I shook my hands without even giving him a glance and turned away without hesitation. At the beginning of my second year of high school, I finally went to the art exam class that I was unable to enter in my previous life. Because of my acting skills from my previous life, I was like a fish in water in the art examination class. Many teachers were pleasantly surprised and praised me as a natural-born actor. Mark chose liberal arts as he did in his previous life and was assigned to the same class as Jane. The art exam class and the liberal arts class were not in the same building, and I deliberately reduced the number of times I went to the liberal arts building on weekdays. As a result, more than half a semester had passed and Mark and I hadn't met again. But many times, when I was practicing in the rehearsal room, I could feel a gaze full of love coming towards me from outside the window of the rehearsal room. But I never deliberately looked for it. Soon it was time for the second-year art performance. As the school's performing arts examination class, we were tasked with putting on high-quality programs. Just like in the previous life, the teachers decided to stage a play. And the only female lead in this drama is me, who is everyone's favorite. But to be honest, I don't want to act in this play. Because I remember clearly that in Mark's WB in his previous life, he clearly said that what made him truly fall in love with Jane was when she was dancing on the stage in a white dress during the art performance in his second year of high school. She danced and jumped like a white butterfly. The girl's small figure leaped into his heart, creating ripples on the lake of his heart. At that time, Mark was completely attracted by the beautiful Jane on the stage, but he also remembered me, the poor guy who was bullied by Jane because of him. Mark once said that I was the hero who saved him. But how could he know? When he saw Jane falling in love on the stage, I, who was squeezed into a corner and tortured by Jane and was covered with scars, was so envious and jealous of Jane who could jump and dance on the stage. If it weren't for Jane, I don't think I would have had the chance to be on this stage. But now, the opportunity has come. Not everyone has the chance to be reborn. Why should I give up the opportunity I've always dreamed of because of a wrong past? God opened his eyes and allowed me to be reborn with the memories of my past life, not to see me give up on myself and hide my edge. I want to make up for the regrets of my last life, I want to shine, and I am destined to walk a more glorious path than my previous life. The day of the performance soon arrived. I got a program in advance, and just like in her previous life, Jane participated in this performance. Our show was before Jane's, and I was wearing a red dress and walking backstage. I am beautiful today. When I looked at myself in the mirror while putting on makeup, my face exuded youthfulness and although it was immature, my eyes were filled with confidence that I didn't have in my previous life. That red dress is warm and flamboyant, and it is undoubtedly the icing on the cake for me who is full of energy and vigor now. Perhaps it was because my red dress was too eye-catching. When I was waiting backstage, many people cast surprised glances at me. But, except for one person. Hey, isn't this Nancy? It's been a long time since we last met. Jane walked up to me in a white dress. With her harmless face and the white dress, she looked like a pure white jasmine flower today. If you ignore her sarcastic tone. Not bad, this red dress looks really good on you. Jane circled around me and looked me up and down. Although she was praising me, the tone of her voice and the jealous expression on her face did not show any trace of compliment at all. Is there anything I can do for you? If not, I'm going to get ready to go on stage. I don't want to waste any more time talking to Jane. After all, she is like a dog. Even if someone passes by, she might bite them. I turned around and tried to leave, but she blocked my way again. She looked me up and down, then gave me a threatening look and ordered. Change this skirt for me. What? Didn't you understand? There were people coming and going backstage. Jane seemed to be afraid that someone would notice her threatening me, so she grabbed my arm, her sharp nails seemed to dig into my flesh, and threatened me. Nancy, why didn't I notice how eye-catching you are before? I will not allow anyone to outshine me today. I don't like to talk nonsense with others. I'm warning you, take off your skirt. Otherwise, you know the consequences. After saying that, she took a step back and gave me a kind smile, but when she turned around, there was a clear threat in her eyes. I looked at her back as she left threateningly, and by the time I realized what was happening, my palms were filled with cold sweat. The place on my arm where she had grabbed me was now aching slightly. But, these are nothing. I must wear this red dress. Not only must I wear it on stage, but I must also complete this performance perfectly. Even if Jane targets me now, or bullies me like she did in my previous life, so what? I am no longer the Nancy from my previous life. If something doesn't kill me, it will make me stronger. I heard the host's announcement above my head, and the teacher was asking me to get on stage. I turned around, and every step I took onto the stage was extremely firm. The moment the spotlight hit me, I seemed to have returned to my previous life, feeling the excitement of holding the Best Actress trophy in my hand. I stood in the center of the stage, closed my eyes, and the moment I opened them, I spoke my lines. What I hate most is your saintly face. I don't love you. I don't want to hear you confess your love to me every day, and I can't let you have this right just because I ask for your money, do you understand? I am leaving, and God will treat those who are brave, strong and passionate well. I once wanted to give up, but he was somewhere in my body. Leaving behind a painful feeling, the thought that he will always be there aches and aches. When I think about how I will look at everything in the future, they will become lifeless because of that little bit of pain. I was afraid. After a long monologue, I turned and left the stage. The originally quiet audience erupted into thunderous cheers and applause. At that moment, a certain empty part of my heart seemed to be filled with something. The moment I bowed with everyone, listening to the thunderous applause from the audience. This is the first time since my rebirth that I feel sincerely happy. The moment I turned around to leave the stage, I glanced and seemed to see Mark sitting in the corner. He stared at me on the stage with his eyes wide open without blinking. There was amazement, nostalgia, as well as repentance and love so heavy that it was suffocating in his eyes. I pretended not to hear anything and quickly walked off the stage. When he was leaving the stage, he was bumped hard on the shoulder by Jane, who was waiting in the wings. The look in her eyes when she looked at me was filled with jealousy, as if she was about to spit fire. But I ignored him and walked straight towards Teacher Chen, who was holding flowers. Teacher Chen excitedly stuffed a bunch of flowers in her hand into my arms. Her eyes were red with excitement, and she said to me, "Nancy, the future is promising." Teacher Chen's choking voice hurt my eyes. I knew that for her. What made her feel even more proud was that she didn't see her favorite students shine on the stage. In my previous life, I failed her expectations, but in this life, I will take off with her expectations and soar to my full potential in the field of performing arts. I returned to the lounge prepared by the school with the flowers. As soon as I walked to the door, I saw a figure that I didn't want to see at all. Nancy, Mark was standing against the wall with a bouquet of roses in his hand. When he saw me, his eyes lit up and he strode towards me. "Nancy, you shine today." He handed me the flowers in his hand, with expectation in his eyes. It was as if he expected me to forgive the past if I took the flowers he handed to me. Looking at him, looking at the flowers in his hand, looking at the look of expectation in his eyes. No matter how I look at this scene, it seems so familiar. Just like in the previous life, when he confessed to me. His face, which had gradually matured, was slightly flushed, and his fingers were trembling as he handed me the rose. He was so young that he didn't even dare to look me in the eye. He turned his head slightly and asked me if I was willing to be with him. At that time, my heart was filled with sweetness, and I thought that the young man in front of me who had once made my heart beat must have me in his heart. But now that I know the truth, I am very curious. Who was Mark thinking of when he confessed to me? Perhaps he treated me as Jane, and wished to do to me all the good things he wanted to do to Jane. Maybe, now too. Thinking of this, my stomach started churning. I ignored the rose Mark offered me, walked past him and opened the door to the lounge. This is the backstage of the actors. All outsiders please leave immediately. My first debut in my life was a great success. Many of my classmates remember that day when I stood on the stage in a red dress, immersed in the role and reciting the lines. My photo on the stage was even hung on the school's confession wall, 5 days a week. All this is different from the previous life. After all, at this time in the previous life, the person who was praised by everyone was still Jane. Jane in the previous life, wearing a white dress, became the first love in the hearts of countless people. But in this life, no one knows what happened to her. She actually made a mistake during her performance on stage. Not to mention first love, I almost became a laughingstock among my classmates. However, no one dared to really ridicule her. I was the one who got the spotlight, and Jane naturally couldn't swallow this. I thought she would come to trouble me. So these days I have been going to and from school in groups. I will definitely not be alone. But even with such caution, accidents still happen. Jane hired someone to trick me out of the classroom. When they dragged me to the toilet, my mind went blank for a moment. Even though I have long since walked out of the painful shadow of bullying in my previous life. But this time, facing their bullying again, I still couldn't resist. I could only protect my head. I let them beat me up. Pour the mop water on me. Empty the toilet wastebasket's tissues onto my head. They laughed as they watched me in such a state of distress, like a drowned dog. Until the moment Jane took out a knife from her pocket. I just came back to my senses and heard her gritting her teeth and saying, "Nancy, do you think I dare not do anything to you? Tell me, if I ruin your face, can you still become a movie queen like you did in your previous life?" When I heard her say this, my eyes widened almost instantly, and I looked at Jane with shock in my eyes. Jane was reborn. It seemed that my shocked expression pleased her. Jane sneered. "Didn't expect it, the movie queen? I was reborn. In your last life, you indulged your fans and forced me to death. Do you still want to dream of becoming a movie queen in this life? I tell you, there is no way." As she spoke, she raised her hand and slapped me hard in the face. "You destroyed everything I had in my last life, and I will never let you have an easy life in this life. Want to enter the entertainment industry like in my previous life and expose me again? I will never give you this opportunity." Jane laughed, looking a little crazy. She was holding the knife in her hand and moving closer to me. At that moment, I admit that I panicked. In my mind, the day before the art exam in my previous life kept flashing back. She scratched my arm, stripped me naked and locked me up on the rooftop in the cold wind. I almost froze to death. I banged on the door of the rooftop in despair and helplessness. Just like now, shouting for help in a very miserable state. But it was during the break, and this toilet was in a remote location, so it was impossible for anyone to come. I didn't know whether I was frightened or in a trance, but I heard extremely familiar footsteps coming from outside the door. Just like the moment in my previous life when I was frozen to the point of losing consciousness. Suddenly, I seemed to hear footsteps outside the door. The footsteps outside the door gradually overlapped with the footsteps in my memory. At that moment I seemed to understand something. But I don't have time to think about it at the moment. Jane's knife stabbed at me. I almost used up all my strength to dodge to the side. Then he kicked her out. I don't know what the psychology is. The two followers who originally followed Jane had already been sent away by her. At this moment, there were only me and her in the bathroom. Jane was kicked in the abdomen by me and fell to the ground in pain. I took this opportunity to take her dagger. But he didn't expect that she had predicted his movement and cut his arm directly. I screamed and blood was all over the ground and I collapsed to the ground holding my arm. Seeing me like this, Jane burst out laughing. She kicked me hard in the stomach. Foul words came out of her mouth. But she seemed to be interested, and the knife in her hand suddenly turned. In no time, she cut all my clothes, and then she took out her cell phone. I don't think it's fun to cut your face. After all, medical beauty technology is so advanced nowadays, who knows if it can be repaired later. I might as well take some nude photos of you. From now on, if you dare to step into the entertainment industry. I posted all these photos online. Let your fans take a good look at how sexy you are. Jane laughed and pointed her phone at my miserable appearance. It's a pity that she is destined not to get what she wants. Before she could press the shutter, the bathroom door was kicked open. Then the head teacher rushed in with the principal. I just happened to see me, covered in bruises, being pinned to the ground by Jane. According to classmates who were there at the time, I was lying on the ground covered in blood. Teacher Chin almost fainted after seeing it. The principal pulled Jane away almost immediately and called an ambulance to take me to the hospital. Teacher Chin called the police on the spot despite his leader's obstruction, and Jane was taken to the police station. It was worth it that I informed my deskmate in advance. If I went out alone. Half an hour later, he still hadn't come back. Then let her take the class teacher to the bathroom where Jane often bullies Mark to save me. This time, many eyes witnessed Jane's murder. And after police testing, it was confirmed that Jane's fingerprints were indeed on the knife. When my parents heard that I was in trouble, they rushed to the hospital almost immediately. When they saw that I was covered in bruises, they almost immediately and relentlessly demanded to be held responsible. The school will have to be forced to expel Jane. But I know that Jane can't leave. Her rich father will eventually remain the same as before. Use money to help her solve the problem, and she is not yet an adult. So there is not much actual punishment at all. Jane knows this, so she is so fearless. However, that's all. After all, I became famous. Someone posted the video of me performing in a play at the party that day online. His impressive acting skills instantly sparked discussions among countless netizens. Almost everyone couldn't believe such mature and profound acting skills. Is this really something a 17-year-old girl can have? I received the invitation for a role in an art film while I was in the hospital. I know the director of this movie. In my previous life, I won the role of Best Actress by playing the leading female role in a movie he directed. I also have an impression of this art film. In my previous life, this movie won 3 international awards. the actors who starred in this film. They all rose to fame after the movie was released. Jane may never have thought that she was so afraid of me. He was willing to destroy me like crazy to stop me from entering the entertainment industry. In the end, all efforts were in vain. In this life, I entered this circle earlier than in my previous life. I accepted the invitation to the film, took leave from school after being discharged from the hospital, and plunged into the crew. After the release of this film, I quickly made a name for myself in the entertainment industry with my solid acting skills. Jane was completely panicked. In order to destroy me, she hired a group of trolls to spread rumors about me. I bought a lot of black fans to spread my false statements online. But she didn't know that this was the moment I had been waiting for. Seeing the insults against me on the internet getting louder and louder, I responded by releasing all the recordings of the day she bullied me, launching a beautiful counterattack. I never thought that I would be lucky enough to escape Jane's bullying in this life. I said, Jane is like a mad dog on the roadside. Even if someone is just passing by, there is a chance that she will bite you. So, every day after Rebirth, I always carry a recorder in my pocket. Or keep your phone recording on all the time. I always understand that sometimes, the thing that can break the camel's back is. It is very likely to be the last straw. Just like in her previous life, Jane was cyberbullied by netizens. Many students who had been hurt by her. They all spoke out online and told what Jane had done to them. Among them is Mark. I recognized that account. It was Mark's secondary account from his previous life. There is no need for any doubt because I have seen that ID countless times. But now, the name of this account is not Mark Loves Jane from the previous life. But it's called Nancy's Silence. I felt a chill at the name and I clicked on his homepage. The moment I saw those contents, I just found it extremely funny. Now there is no trace of Jane in this trumpet anymore. Instead, he felt guilty about me. He said he regretted hurting me. I was laughed at by everyone at what should have been the happiest moment. He said that he realized belatedly that the person he loved had always been me. He said that seeing me keep my distance from him again and again. When he found out that she no longer protected him like she did in his previous life, he just felt heartbroken. Ridiculous. Really ridiculous. I can now confirm that Mark is really sick. When I loved him with all my heart, he had someone else in his heart. But now I keep him at a distance. But he was like a dog, shouting loudly, I love you. An emotion that can be called pathological, claiming to be affectionate, but in fact just a puddle of mud. Stinky. Disgusting. Unlucky. Jane was eventually sent to prison, and by the time I exposed all this, she was already over 18 years old. In addition, due to the cyberbullying, her family business was affected and went bankrupt. Jane now no longer has the confidence and capital she once had. Even if she were to live her life again, she would still have to pay the price for what she had done. The next time I saw Mark, it was after the art exam and I had returned to school to concentrate on studying academic subjects. As if he was afraid that I would avoid him again, Mark waited directly at the classroom door. But this time, I didn't avoid him. Nancy, look. I have done my best to make Jane pay. Could you please, forgive me? Mark took credit for it by pointing out his post exposing Jane's bullying. More than 200,000 likes and comments. He completely exposed himself as a victim on the internet. But, I didn't watch it. I stared at Mark for a long time, then suddenly smiled with relief and asked him. In my previous life, the day before the art exam. The night Jane and her friends locked me up on the rooftop. You're behind the door, right? What? Mark didn't seem to expect me to ask this question. At that moment, there was a hint of panic in his eyes. Not just that night, but also that important audition I missed because I overslept. The glass of water you gave me must have been mixed with a sufficient amount of sleeping pills, right? Including the day when Jane locked me in the bathroom. She wanted to disfigure me. You were also at the bathroom door, right? With every word I said and every question I asked, Mark's face began to turn pale. Actually, I don't need to answer. After all, Mark's expression has already given me the answer. Nancy, no, that's not the case. Mark trembled and reached out to touch my sleeve. But I avoided it without leaving a trace. Until this moment, Mark finally broke down. He squatted down with his head in his hands, tears falling to the ground, filled with regret. I just can't think straight for a moment. I'm afraid your love for me is just a temporary impulse. I'm afraid you'll throw me away like trash. I'm afraid I'm not worthy of you. I was wrong. Nancy. I was so wrong. Every minute and every second after Rebirth. I deeply regret having hurt you in my previous life. I think God is good to me. I want to make up for what happened before, but you won't give it to me. But this is not love. I interrupted Mark, you never loved me. Do you remember the monologue I gave in the school play that day? Mark, that's what I told you. However, I feel that the last line is inappropriate. I looked at Mark and recited the monologue to him. I am leaving. God will treat those who are brave, strong and passionate well. I once wanted to give up, but he was somewhere in my body. Leaving behind a painful feeling, the thought that he will always be there aches and aches. When I think about how I will look at everything in the future, they will become lifeless because of that little bit of pain. I was afraid. Loving you is the thing I regret most. Goodbye, Mark. After saying that, I walked around him and went to the classroom. He was left alone, crying like a child at the classroom door. That's it. Bully dog, die. Jane, die. When I first learned the news, I had just received the acceptance letter from the film school of my choice. The first movie I starred in won 3 international awards, and I also won the Best Newcomer award. The day before the college entrance examination, he jumped from the top floor of the school building. Mark's mother stayed at the school all day, determined to get an explanation from the school. Some people say that Mark committed suicide due to excessive stress, others say that he was trapped in love. Because someone once saw Mark holding a bouquet of roses and standing at the entrance of the school alley for a long time. A month later, someone found Mark's Facebook account. But all the content about me in that small account had been deleted long ago. All that was left was a post he made the day before he committed suicide. Perhaps someone like me doesn't deserve an afterlife, nor does I deserve to love you. I turned off my phone without any hesitation. Even until the last moment before death. Mark is still expressing his self-righteous love. But people like him don't deserve to be loved, nor do they deserve to love others. His death doesn't make me sad. Just like the line in that play. God will treat those who are brave, strong and passionate well. I will eventually have the glory that belongs to me again.